These are Nebraska corn farmers. They work in acres, not hours, harvesting the energy and climate solutions the world needs. We are proud to stand with you.
The success of tomorrow's soy industry depends on the actions we take today. The future is here, and the time to move is now.
Market Journal Television for Agricultural Business Decisions is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources in partnership with the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. Promotional support provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine and partial funding provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board and the Nebraska Corn Board.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebel Ciclocha, and thanks for joining us today on Market Journal. We're out and about again this week, and we're coming to you from the 2025 Goodmanson Sandhills Laboratory Open House, where we will be getting some great updates on the beef industry and current research. Coming up for you this week, we'll be getting some updates for our soybean producers, and Elliott Dennis will join us shortly to give an update on the cattle markets. But what better place to kick things off than right here at the GSL Open House? We first caught up with Nebraska Extension Range Management Specialist, Dr. Mitchell Stephenson, to discuss current research happening here at GSL. Of course, and it's an exciting day today with the annual open house. Tell us what producers can expect and what's going to be happening here today.
Yeah, it's always a highlight of the year to be able to put this on. It's been going on. This will be the 26th year that it's been going on, and we try to come together, all the people that work here throughout the year, to highlight the research that we have going on. There's a number of different faculty from across the state, both at our research extension education centers as well as from on campus, that talk about different aspects of beef production that we do research on here.
Most definitely. Well, there's going to be lots of topics covered at length today. One of those, of course, will be virtual fencing, a topic that you are very well versed on. Tell us what you'll be presenting to producers and some of the new things on the topic of virtual fence.
Yeah, we've conducted virtual fence research here for the last few years at the ranch, and so we've kind of learned a lot in terms of the different options that are available out there. When we started, there was only one company. Now there's several companies that are providing this technology, and so we're really looking at everything from welfare to what we can do in terms of varying our grazing management, those types of things. And so we're going to highlight some of that. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the trade-offs, costs, those types of things to help producers better understand this technology and what it can do for them.
Well, certainly another thing on the docket is the ADAPT project. Tell us what that is and what you'll be sharing.
Yeah, this was a kind of a long time coming project, I would say. It's been in the planning for the last several years. This last year we were able to get funding, and this is a project led by Dr. Galen Erickson and the Beef Innovation Hub. And it brings together a number of faculty from all the different, several of the departments in IANR, Biological Systems Engineering, SNR, Agronomy and Horde, Animal Science, others. And really what this project's trying to do is look at the different management systems that we have cattle in. So there's the Goodmanson is one of the sites, Barter Brothers Ranch is another site, and then also Eastern Nebraska Research Extension Education Center is another site. So these different systems, different management, and we're looking at a number of different things from greenhouse gas emissions and uptake and carbon uptake into the rangeland areas or grassland areas. We're looking at the resilience of some of these systems in terms of how grazing animals incorporate into that ecosystem, and then also looking at local knowledge and better understanding how ranchers make this management work within these different areas. And so it's a pretty broad project, but I think it has some really neat implications for better understanding beef cattle production in our state.
Thanks a million to Mitch for his time and expertise this week. If you'd like to keep tabs on the latest news to come out of the Goodmanson Sandhills Laboratory, just visit their website at gsl.unl.edu. We'll have much more content from the 2025 GSL Open House to share with you in the coming weeks. This week, for our In the Field update, things look a little different as we're in the sandhills of Nebraska. We caught up with Brenda Mushik, a rancher in southeast Cherry County. Brenda, you ranch near Purdom. Give us a glimpse into what pasture and range conditions have looked like for you this summer.
Well, it's really remarkable. I mean, I've lived in the Nebraska sandhills all of my life, and they never cease to amaze me. Because the fragility of them is great, but their resilience is even better. And it's years like this where we didn't get any rain until probably towards the end of May, and we're really nervous, and then it starts raining, and we just had amazing range conditions right now for what we thought we were going to go into. I mean, I've been through a lot of droughts so far in my life, and always everybody talks about the drought of 2012, and sometimes we say, well, we're going to wish we had 2012 if this gets any worse, but the range conditions have been great. We just got done haying. We had pretty average crop. I mean, there's a lot of years we put up more, but we've definitely put up less. So it's really good. I think the quality we got was good. Our little part of southeast Cherry County there is really got missed a lot. But we also got missed by the bad stuff too. Say in July, we only had like 20 hundredths of rain. And so far we've had 30 hundredths in August. But the hills are just wonderful. I mean, yeah, there's some sunflowers, but that's okay. Sunflowers is just it's a natural way of the sandhills healing themselves from drought. And we don't have them all over like we did in 13. But the range conditions is phenomenal. If I'd have known we were going to get some rain like this, we could have brought in 200 more cows, same as last year, but we didn't know that. Unfortunately, that puts us into a high fire danger this fall.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, coming off of a summer of abundance, you mentioned, the threat of fire coming this fall, but what are some other considerations you're looking at as we head into the fall and winter?
Well, when do you wean? Where right now it's the weather, like I said, the weather's going to change here after a day or two, and it's going to start fluctuating. That's what it does in the fall. And we've got to get the preconditioned shots in these calves, get their inoculations in. And then it's the decision making is when do you wean? We've got all this grass. When do we go as long as we can and get them and graze them before we bring them home and we wean on the aftergrowth on the meadows? We could sure use a little bit more rain on those before get them to grow back a little bit more. But that's the question right now: is keeping the calves healthy, and when do we pull those off so those cows have ample time to heal up and repair and gain some weight before they have another baby.
Always nice to get to know the people you're spending the day with at these events. If you'd like to let us know how things are going where you are, we would love to give you a visit and feature your operation on Market Journal. Just send an email to marketjournal@unl.edu. Well, it's time to turn our attention over to the markets. Record highs in the cattle market have been a cause for celebration for many producers as of late. And what better place to get a breakdown of the cattle markets? We had the opportunity to sit down with University of Nebraska ag economist Elliott Dennis to get his take on this hot market. Elliott, you just addressed producers here at the Goodmanson Sandhills Laboratory. Give us a high-level overview on your presentation this morning and some of the key elements that you honed in on today.
Yeah, so really we were talking about the outlook for the cattle market, particularly as we go into the fall. A lot of decisions about weaning, retaining, and really kind of where prices could potentially go. We talked a little bit about kind of the markets, what the futures market is saying, what the local cash price here in Nebraska is saying, and then just talked about kind of how consumer demand is potentially supporting those prices. And we kind of ended with a little bit about kind of what we'd expect for, basically returns to cow and what are potentially that are able to support those.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, herd rebuild is on everyone's mind right now. Talk about heifer retention, what those numbers are looking like, and how many heifers are headed to the feed yard.
Yeah, so really the short answer is we're at the lowest numbers that we've ever experienced, both at nominally, so like the actual number of cows, but also when you think about the total number of heifers to cows that we actually have out there. That number of heifers to cows really gives us a good indication of how much herd rebuilding is actually happening. It's low, lowest that it's ever been. Really along the supply chain, there's no indication that we're actually retaining and rebuilding. So when we talk about kind of what that means for prices, it means that assuming constant demand, which we shouldn't take for granted, that prices still have the ability to move upward.
Most definitely. Well, as we talk about demand, consumers are consuming more beef and also paying more for that beef. What does that tell us about what the market looks like moving forward?
Yeah, so demand, as we know, is just kind of a combination of prices and quantities. So when we think about kind of what consumers are willing to pay, I mean, prices were up about 14% last year, and consumption didn't even change, which means total value through the supply chain was able to be supported. When we look at this year into quarter 2, we're at essentially about 15% higher demand than we were back in the early 2000s. Really, the quarter 2 of this last year for demand, and really quarter 1, was the highest that we've ever seen. So I don't think we should take that for granted. We have strong cattle prices. We have a supply situation that's favorable. But even those situations, consumers can choose to walk away from the beef counter and purchase other products. They haven't done so, and there's really no indication of them doing that in the future.
Well, through this, what have we learned about today's consumer? You mentioned in your talk earlier today that we've kind of established a new normal when it comes to consumer preferences.
Yeah.
What does that mean, and what can we expect for them? Are they still going to continue to pay these high prices?
Yeah, so I think we're kind of in a feeling out phase if we can actually move into a new normal. The fact that we're seeing high prices and consumers have really unchanged consumption habits is really kind of a new phenomenon that we're seeing. We had essentially kind of 3 primary phases for beef demand over the last 20-25 years. In the early 2000s, we were consuming a lot of product but at low prices. And then really after the Atkins 2007, we went through a kind of 3-year transition phase where consumers ate a little bit less beef, but we purchased it at a lot higher prices. And now we're actually starting to move back the opposite, or at least up. We're starting to either consume a little bit more or just the amount, but at higher prices. So maybe move to the left and up now. It's really kind of a potentially for a new frontier if we're able to actually extract more value and actually not change consumption patterns.
When we talk about trade, you mentioned some other markets, in particular Brazil, who may also be capitalizing on a record corn crop this year. What are some considerations? You mentioned maybe not this year we need to be so worried about it, but some infrastructure pieces that may be laying the foundation for right now.
Yeah, so really what I think about when we talk about all the tariffs and happening, we've seen kind of China back off the beef market. We're selling high value product in there. And so when we talk about reduction in exports for us, it's coming all out of the Hong Kong, China market. Well, we know that China is heavily invested into the Brazilian market. Brazilian is a high producer of corn and soy. What do we do with kind of excess corn and soy? Well, we feed it. We find additional value products. And putting that all together with kind of where corn market's at, we have the ability to, or they have the ability if they want to develop the feedlot industry a little bit more and compete directly with us on the high value market for premium beef to the world. That's not something that's going to happen this year or in maybe in 5 years, but 10 years if we continue in a certain climate, that we can essentially provide the opportunity for them where it makes economical sense for them to develop something like that out.
You follow that up by discussing returns to the cow and what that kind of looks like. Break down some of those tools and how we can really evaluate that moving forward.
Yeah, so if we're going to retain a heifer, and put on weight on her, we need to be calculating the value of gain, how much the market is willing to pay us both now and in the future to put on that additional weight by location, by animal type. Beefbasis.com is a great tool that I use frequently to kind of, with producers, to kind of show some of that. I think if we're thinking about kind of the value of that replacement heifer, something like a replacement calculators are really important. So we have the ability or projected average to make about $640 essentially per cow. That's high, but not as high in real dollars as we had in 2014. And the difference between high and low producers, there's quite a big range. And so even at high prices that we're experiencing now, there's going to be some producers, because of their cost structure, they're still not going to make money this year.
Thanks to Elliott for joining us on location this week. If you have a question for any of our future analysts, email us or get in touch on social media and we'll pass your question along. Moving on from cattle to quilts, the State Fair showcases Nebraska 4-H members, and Steve White takes us inside Judging Day at the fair.
The Nebraska State Fair isn't just livestock shows and fried Oreos, it's a reflection of Nebraska youth. If you can make it, bake it, or grow it, it's on display here in the 4-H building.
The state fairgrounds come alive with the hum of creativity. Carts rattling, volunteers stapling ribbons.
Okay, what's next?
And judges leaning in to admire the smallest details.
Never seen such pretty dried vegetables.
From the first step through the doors, it's clear these young exhibitors are proud of their work. Jace Hansen from Bertrand spent 6 months crafting this papier-mâché whale shark.
I did it at Bertrand Public School, and it took forever to complete, pretty much.
4-H at the fair isn't just about ribbons. It's a chance to showcase creativity, patience, and skills that last a lifetime.
Yeah, we got to find some score sheets for it.
Score sheets aren't the only thing being put to the test. From jams and jellies to wildlife and engineering, 4-H teaches kids to turn ideas into tangible accomplishments. And that's why Georgia Jones enjoys judging.
I think it's great. I think it's a life skill. And I think it's better to have the skill and never need it than to need it and not have it. I think we need to bring some of this back.
A sweet reminder that even an 11-year-old can learn a craft that used to be essential in every kitchen. Julie Albright, a retired food safety professor, knows her stuff.
And this product, you know, just sparkles.
Brandon Meyer drove carefully from the Lincoln area with his son Wyatt's farm diorama. Proud to see the hours of effort pay off.
This is a representation of Grandpa's hayfield, and we carved some purple foam insulation out to generate terraces. And then he wanted to put windrows, like the hay has been cut and ready to be baled. And so we bought model railroading supplies to build some of this.
Judges like Julie Albright and Georgia Jones see more than purple ribbons. They see kids gaining confidence, learning patience, and finding pride in a job well done. And that's what 4-H educator Jill Godikin wants to see, whatever the color ribbon.
So purple is what we want. However, when we're looking for growth opportunities and wanting youth to develop and have goals for the future, getting a blue is not a bad thing at the State Fair. And so when we think about what does that mean, it means there's room for growth and new skills in which they can learn and grow through that experience.
Judges say they've seen a comeback in hands-on skills, sewing, canning, crafting. These aren't just hobbies, they're lessons that last a lifetime.
And it is beautiful.
If you could bottle the creativity of Nebraska's youth in a bottle, this might be as close as you can get.
Nebraska 4-H is where tomorrow's leaders get their start. Reporting, I'm Steve White.
4-H activities continue through the weekend before FFA headlines Labor Day weekend. We'll have more from the 2025 Nebraska State Fair next week. Bovine pink eye may not kill your cattle, but it has the potential to reduce average daily gain while consuming resources and time. Pink eye has high morbidity but very low mortality, impacting about 10% of calves on average and around 3% of mature cows. Learn all about the economic impacts of pink eye and the best ways to prevent it and treat it if it comes along in the August issue of Nebraska Farmer. It's time now for weather with Nebraska Extension's Eric Hunt. Eric, we've had some great weather this week. How are things shaping up over the next 7 days?
Well, thanks, Rebel. Much cooler weather coming in through this next week after what's been a relatively warm last 10 days for most of us here across Nebraska. Cooler weather coming in complements this trough coming into the Great Lakes region. We should also have some energy coming into the High Plains region Saturday night into Sunday, so there's going to be a chance of showers of thunderstorms, particularly west central section of the state, possibly getting into southeastern Nebraska as well. WPC is not particularly bullish on a lot of rain falling from the sky on Sunday across the state, but there will be chances of this rain extending further toward the east. Also, better chance of rain will exist across western Nebraska early portion of the week. So I think most of the Panhandle Sandhills has a chance of picking up some additional precipitation early portion of the week. Eastern half of the state likely going to be relatively dry starting Sunday afternoon through at least the middle of the week. And it's possible that portions of northeastern Nebraska may remain quite dry for most of the entire work week. Biggest story this week, there'll be cooler temperatures coming into the region, so we're looking at highs in the 70s statewide through at least Wednesday, possibly getting in the 80s across portions of Panhandle by later in the week. But certainly we're done with the heat for a good while. And overnight lows may actually get down to the 40s as far south as Lincoln and Hastings by Tuesday morning. So later in the week, though, we will see this ridge try to start building back toward the north. Now, there's more uncertainties exactly where some of these short areas are going to be. Right now, it looks like mostly energy be Kansas, Oklahoma, so we're going to probably see the bulk of precipitation down there. That game on Thursday night might be relatively interesting because Kansas City is definitely going to be in the possibility of getting some relatively significant precipitation sometime today on Thursday, possibly into early Friday morning. Our area, I think we probably going to be on the northern end of this, but I'm putting our area in a circle here because I think we will have a chance, especially if these short waves are a little bit further toward the north, if that ridge is a little bit further toward the north, then certainly Highway 36 to I-80 corridor is going to have a chance of picking up some additional precipitation as we head into Thursday and into early Friday morning. CPC shows above average favor through the period right after Labor Day. I do think there's going to be a pretty good chance for the entire state to have moisture Labor Day week and probably Saturday, and maybe again Monday into Tuesday, the week right after Labor Day, or week of Labor Day. Temperatures likely to remain relatively cool here for most of the rest of the month. I do think there may be a chance we get a little bit closer toward average by next weekend. Certainly most of this next week, though, is going to be quite cool for this time of year across this portion of the country. Probably the coolest one we've had in late August, this portion of the country, in several years, actually. But it stands in stark contrast to what's been a pretty warm summer for a lot of the Corn Belt, particularly here across portions of Illinois, Indiana, where minimum temperatures have been near record warm in some cases so far this summer. Precipitation, we've been sneaky dry here across areas from Holders to about western York County. Also, portions of Sand Hills, very spotty precipitation across portions of Sand Hills. Quite wet, though, western Corn Belt into Iowa. Pretty dry here across the Mid-South. Very, very dry here recently across New England. In terms of soybean areas in drought, again, the Mid-South region has been pretty dry here the last 30, 45 days, so drought starting to become an issue here. Pocket of concern in Illinois. Closer to home, did see some drought improvement across portions of Sheridan and Rock and Brown counties. A little bit of degradation, though, in this portion of the Sand Hills. And again, we still have some severe drought across portions of South Central and the Southern Panhandle. And here's the temperature and precipitation roundup for the week ending August 16th, 2025. Back to you, Rebel.
Thanks, Eric. And finally today, last week, Nebraska Extension wrapped up their series of soybean management field days at the Eastern Nebraska Research, Extension, and Education Center. This event provided growers with the latest in soybean production, management, and marketing. During our time there, we caught up with Extension entomologist Justin McMecken to discuss what potential threats are still looming for Nebraska producers as we inch closer to harvest.
At this year's Soybean Management Field Days, producers had the opportunity to discuss the latest techniques and technologies in soybean production by networking with fellow farmers, industry experts, and extension educators like Justin McMecken. During his time presenting at the event, Justin highlighted two particular threats that producers should be on the lookout for as the growing season winds down.
Yeah, two things we really discussed. Soybean gallmage was one and Decty stem borer was the other. A lot of focus on soybean gallmage. This area, not so many hands up on big issues this year, but just south of here at previous field days, lots of issues. Talking 90% plus of growers having issues with soybean gallmage. Now that's anywhere from a few dead plants on the edge of the field to growers talking about significant losses from soybean gallmage. And so we focused on what's new, and a lot of what's new is we started doing some variety testing, commercial variety testing. Big deal with that is we're anywhere between 6% dead plants to 60% dead plants. So it matters what people are planting in their field. I think growers want a lot more of that. It's just challenging. Companies are reluctantly kind of stepping into that space. I think it's new space for them, and so we're hoping for a lot more of that activity. And then we kind of showed them what we've been seeing in the state this year in terms of where pressure is, and it mirrors a lot of those conversations. Southeast part of the state seeing a lot of high numbers of larvae, a lot of dead plants, kind of fades as we go north, but there's larval presence all the way up to the South Dakota border. 8 in 10 chance somebody steps in a field, they're going to find it. Yeah, most of the conversations we're having right now are about what do we do about the current infestation we have and all the dead plants that are out there. People are asking me, can I disc up my field, turn it under, where I have all those dead plants, because I'm getting weed issues now. And so that's a challenging thing to talk about because we don't really know the advantage, if there's any advantage to that besides the weed control. And they might turn in some gallmage in the ground that might reemerge and infest further in the field. So that's the main part of those conversations. We're really focused on next season. You have an issue in this field. What do you plant next year? And then some of that management practices in terms of we're doing some tillage in the field we're planting into. We're increasing our depth of planting and changing our planter a little bit and it looks like that helps a little bit to hide those critical fissures that are right near the base of the plant.
Japanese beetles have also been a consistent pest for many producers around the state. Once those pests are spotted in your crop, it may be tempting to treat your fields to mitigate any potential damage. However, it's important to make your management decisions based on the amount of defoliation present in your fields.
Yeah, I get a few Japanese beetle phone calls where people are, I see a lot defoliating along the edge of the field. Every time I have those conversations, I'm always like, take a look at that whole plant rather than just the top. Often looks bad as you approach the field. We always overestimate defoliation. I've seen Dectes in the field, or Japanese beetle in the field, but that top area, if you just went on that, you might spray. But if you move down the plant, you see a lot of it's in really good shape, and so by the time you get down to the bottom, you've got a threshold well below what we would spray for, which is 20% this time of the season where we're in reproductive stages. So very few cases where I get somebody who actually needs to treat. 90+% don't need to treat this time of the year.
As we inch closer and closer to harvest, you may want to think about prioritizing which fields you'll tackle first, as pest challenges you face during the season may cause some headaches as those fields begin to dry down.
Dectes. If you've seen the odd wilting or dead petiole along field borders and you're looking at maybe 50% plus of plants being infested, you want to prioritize those areas for harvest. On the flip side, or the same side of that, is gallmage. Gallmage has been feeding at the base of these plants. They've really weakened them. So winds that we're getting, we got some storms through last weekend, knocked over a lot of plants in the field. If we get more of those, we're likely to see more plant breakage. So just keep up on those fields. If you're seeing a lot of broken plants, get those ones that broke off early or are breaking off out first.
With harvest right around the corner, now's the time to stay vigilant for any pests that could potentially eat into those profits. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Bill Dodd.
Always great to see what's new at those annual field days. If you'd like to stay up to date on the latest research and crop conditions, be sure to bookmark cropwatch.unl.edu. Well, that'll do it for this week's show. We had a great time here at the Goodmanson-Santos Laboratory Open House and would like to thank the team out here for making this a memorable experience each and every year. Be sure to stay tuned to Market Journal for more great content from the 2025 GSL Open House. And if you missed a story, be sure to follow Market Journal on YouTube and social media to join in on the conversation. We hope to see you right back here next week. Until then, I'm Rebel Soklocha wishing you a wonderful weekend.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.